Why do I feel guilty all the time? Hello and welcome. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that can become an extraordinary heavy burden. Guilt. Have you ever apologized for something that wasn't really your fault? Have you ever felt guilty for saying no? Guilty for taking some time for yourself? Guilty because you couldn't help somebody. Perhaps even guilty because you were enjoying yourself while someone you cared about was struggling. Many people, probably just like you, carry guilt without ever really questioning whether that guilt still belongs to them. It simply becomes part of life. That little voice appears. Oh, you should have done more. You should have known better. You shouldn't have said that. You've disappointed them. And sometimes you're simply not good enough. Today I don't want to tell you to stop feeling guilty. That would be far too simplistic. Instead, I'd like to help you understand your guilt. Because guilt itself isn't necessarily the problem. Sometimes guilt is extremely useful. But sometimes we continue carrying it long after it has served its purpose. And perhaps today we can begin putting down some of that unnecessary weight. Guilt isn't your enemy. Now, healthy guilt has a purpose. Suppose I say something hurtful to someone I care about. Later I think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. That uncomfortable feeling encourages me to go back, apologize, and perhaps behave differently next time. That's useful. Guilt has done its job. It has helped me recognize that my behavior wasn't consistent with the person I want to be. But there's another kind of guilt. This guilt doesn't say, I did something wrong. It says, there's something wrong with me. That's different. Those are two completely different messages. One encourages responsibility, the other encourages shame. And many people, probably just like you, have become remarkably good at taking responsibility for things that were never entirely theirs to carry. Perhaps someone is unhappy, and immediately you wonder what you did. Someone doesn't answer your message, and you begin replaying the conversation. Someone asks you for something, and you say no. And for the rest of the day you feel uncomfortable. Perhaps you've become so accustomed to looking after everybody else's feelings that looking after yourself somehow feels selfish. If you recognize yourself in any of this, I'd like you to consider something. Where did you learn that your needs mattered less? Now, I'm not asking you to find some dramatic event from the past. There may not be one. Sometimes these things develop quietly. Perhaps you've learned that being helpful brought approval. Perhaps keeping everyone happy kept life peaceful. Perhaps you became the dependable one, the strong one, the person everybody could rely upon. And there's nothing wrong with being any of those things until helping everybody else requires abandoning yourself. the impossible standard. Over more than 30 years of working with people, I've noticed something. We often judge our past selves using information that only became available afterwards. Think about that. You make a decision, years later you know far more. And then you look backwards and say, I should have known. But should you? Should you have known? You didn't have today's experience. You didn't have today's understanding. You didn't know how everything would turn out. You made a decision with the resources, information, and emotional capacity available to you then. That doesn't mean every decision was right. I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. That's part of being human. But there's an enormous difference between saying, I wish I'd handled that differently, and saying, I can never forgive myself for handling it that way. The first allows learning. The second creates imprisonment. A small story. Imagine someone who has spent years caring for somebody they love. They've given their time, their energy, their attention. Perhaps they've sacrificed holidays, opportunities, and parts of their own life. Eventually, the person they're caring for dies. And what does the mind say? Look at everything you gave. It finds the one occasion when you became impatient, the one day when you were exhausted, the one moment when you wished you could escape from the responsibility. And it whispers, you should have done more. More. Yes, more. Sometimes there wasn't any more to give. Sometimes what we're carrying isn't responsibility. It's an impossible expectation of ourselves. And perhaps you've been carrying one too. Let's pause for a few minutes. If you're driving or doing something that requires your full attention, simply continue listening and come back to this part another time. Otherwise, make yourself comfortable. There is nothing special you need to do. Simply notice where your body is supported. Notice your feet, your hands, and become aware of your breathing. You don't need to change your breathing, just notice it. That's right. Just notice it. And perhaps bring to mind something you've been carrying. Nothing overwhelming, just something that occasionally produces that familiar thought. Oh, I should have done better. And instead of arguing with yourself, I'd like you to become curious. Ask yourself quietly, what did I know at the time? What was happening in my life then? What was I trying to do? What resources did I actually have available to me? And here's another question. Imagine somebody you genuinely care about came to you carrying exactly the same story. They tell you what happened. They tell you what they regret. They tell you how guilty they feel. How would you speak to them? Would you condemn them? Would you tell them they should suffer for another 10 years? Or would you perhaps say, you did the best you could with what you had? You made a mistake, but you're still worthy of kindness. You can't change what happened, but you can learn from it. Notice how easily compassion can flow towards another human being. And now, just for a moment, see what happens when you allow a little of that same compassion to flow towards you. No excuses, no pretending, simply understanding. You can take responsibility without punishing yourself. You can regret something without making regret your identity. You can learn from yesterday without living there. Take another moment. Notice your breathing. Notice where you are. And when you're ready, simply bring your attention fully back to this conversation. There's an important distinction, and I want you to remember this. Healthy guilt says, I did something I regret. Shame says, I am someone who should be regretted. Never confuse the two. You are considerably more than the worst decision you've ever made. You're also everything you've learned since, every kindness you've shown, every person you've helped, every time you've tried again, every time you've apologized, every time you've changed direction. That's part of your story too. Yet strangely, our minds sometimes maintain a detailed filing cabinet containing everything we've ever done wrong, whilst conveniently misplacing the evidence of everything we've done right. Perhaps you've noticed that yourself. And now imagine a backpack. I'd like to give you one simple image to carry from today's episode. Imagine you're wearing a backpack. Every time you blame yourself unnecessarily, another stone goes into the bag. You should have done more. Another stone. I shouldn't have disappointed them. Another stone. I should have known. Another stone. One stone doesn't weigh very much. But carry them for 10, 20 or 30 years, and eventually you forget what walking without that weight felt like. Understanding doesn't pretend those stones never existed. It simply allows you to imagine them. Some represent genuine mistakes. Learn from them and make amends where appropriate. Then put them down. But some of those stones were never yours in the first place. Perhaps somebody else's happiness wasn't entirely your responsibility. Perhaps you couldn't have known what would happen. Perhaps you really did everything you reasonably could. Perhaps saying no wasn't selfish. Perhaps looking after yourself wasn't a betrayal of somebody else. And perhaps you've punished yourself enough. Now here's something I'd like you to practice this week. When guilt appears, don't immediately fight it. Ask it a question. Is there something useful I need to do? Is there something useful I need to do? If the answer is yes, do it. Apologize, correct something. Have the conversation, learn, change your behavior. That's healthy responsibility. But if there's nothing left to repair, ask another question. Am I learning from this, or am I simply punishing myself? Am I learning from this, or am I simply punishing myself? Now that's a powerful distinction, because punishment doesn't change yesterday. It simply steals something from today. Remember, you cannot change yesterday, but you can change your relationship with yesterday. And sometimes that's where freedom begins. If something we've discussed today resonated with you, perhaps you recognize patterns in your own life that you'd like to understand better, I'd be delighted to speak with you. I offer a free, confidential, one-to-one strategy call. No obligation, no commitment. It's simply an opportunity for us to talk about you, what's been happening, what may be keeping the pattern going, and what practical steps might help you move forward. There's no pressure and no obligation. Just a confidential conversation about where you are now and where you'd like to be. Until next time, take good care of yourself, and perhaps this week, be a little kinder to the person you have to live with every single day. Bye for now. Take care.